At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
It is a new day for 911 professionals. They have gone from the most important person you will never see to the most vital piece of public safety. Truth be told, they always have been. The curtain has been pulled back, and they are sharing their stories. Welcome to Imagine Listening. Your Worst Day is Our Everyday by Ricardo Martinez II, and narrated by myself, Ricardo Martinez II, and distributed by Beacon Audio Books. Copyright 2023. That's right, everyone. Finally, I can let everyone know the rumors are true. Imagine Listening, Your Worst Day is Our Everyday is now available as an audiobook on Audible, and it's a long time coming. Very excited. Not a lot of authors get the opportunity to voice their own book, but I had the honor and privilege to do so. So thank you to Beacon Audio Books, as well as my publisher, Titled Town Publishing, for everything, but especially all of you for making the I Am 911 movement, as well as Imagine Listening, what it is today. I appreciate you all more than you know. So go ahead, head out, stream it, download it, however you consume your audiobooks. Imagine Listening is now available. If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast, whether you are on Patreon or Facebook or Circle. Thank you so very much. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially all of you who are currently watching, sharing, supporting, and just all of it. Thank you so very much. I am currently in Kansas. As you can see, I'm in a hotel. And I'm here this week in Emporia, and this is Lyon County, and I am going to be teaching tomorrow, very early in the morning. I've got my 8-hour communications course that I'm basically taking around the country, and it's been really good. I'm excited to see all of you. By the time this comes out, it'll definitely be past the time that it might actually almost be National Nina time, which is in June. And I say that only because there's a lot of episodes that I have coming out, but man, I cannot wait for you to hear everything that is coming up. There's so many powerful stories, just great 911 professionals that are doing amazing things in 911. So I feel blessed and honored to be able to share their stories, and your trust in me to do so I don't take it lightly. Thank you so very much. It has been just a great experience, and I am going to continue to do what I do. This is my passion. I love it. And there's a lot of stuff coming up. So let's jump right in. I'm excited for my guest today and to learn a lot about her, but also something that literally happened just a few days ago. We're going to be sharing something that part of the story here a little bit towards the end of the episode. But my guest today, her name is Jenessa, and she is a level 3 now professional out of St. George Communications out of Utah. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing all right. I said this in the last episode, but I'm going to say this again really quick. There's a lot of weather that has been going on in, Oklahoma, Nebraska, just a lot of tornadoes, some crazy stuff that has been going on. And the director for Lyon County, where I'm going to be teaching, her name is Roxy, good friend of mine, and she's on her way back from Colorado. She was just teaching out there at a conference, and she was telling me, so we're supposed to have some like thunderstorms and stuff this evening, and I think it'll be fine, but in case something crazy happens, we don't want our guest of honor to be, held up in a Hampton during a tornado. So this is what you need to do.
So you, well, that's welcoming.
Right, and scary. So so I'm glad that I will have a pretty good shelter to go to, but I hope I don't need to do so.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
that is yeah, that's just some of the stuff that's going on already this week, and it has been very interesting. But you a few days ago had something happen, which we are going to talk about here a little later in the episode, and I want to jump in and learn more about you. So how did you get involved in public safety to begin with?
So my stepdad is in law enforcement,
Mhm.
and I remember I was sitting at a desk computer. I was doing my homework, and I was texting. I was doing all these things, and he comes downstairs, and he's like, "Hey, dispatch is hiring." I'm 18 at this time, and I was like, "Cool. I don't know what that means." And he's like, it's dispatch. It's 911 dispatch. You answer 911. And I'm like, there's no way I could do that. I don't even know what that entails. I'm good. And he's like, okay, well, what are your plans when you graduate? And I was like, okay, I will go apply. And school was just not in the cards for me. I wasn't excited to continue school. My goal was to get out onto the road when I was 21. So I was like, well, I'll apply. If it goes well, I'll do that until I'm 21, and then I'll get out onto the road. The center I applied for is for the state of Utah. So the hiring process takes like 3 months. It feels like a year, but you have your polygraph, you have your 10 interviews, you have all of the things. And I remember throughout the process, even just it was slowly growing on me to where I was like, wow, I'm actually getting kind of excited about this. I don't know what I'm doing or what I'm getting into. And so they told me that I got the job, and I started. So I graduated May of 2009, and I started October of 2009. And I've been doing it ever since. I have bounced around. I worked there for a little bit, and then I wanted to go to school, or thought I did. And I went to Orem for a bit. So I actually would work in Orem or go to school in Orem, and on weekends or when I had time off, I would drive back the 3-hour drive to go work a shift or two, because I was a little bit addicted. And so it was interesting. But yeah, I've been in it for almost 15 years this October.
Wow. So 15 years, and it all really started from a parent just being like,
Yeah.
hey, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, either it's school or you gotta do something. And And he really had, a huge part in me, like going through the process. He helped me learn my codes, he helped me learn the phonetics. But it was really cool for me to know that I got hired because of me. He had no part in it. He didn't work for the state of Utah. And so it was nice to not feel like I was hired due to family connections, that I was able to do it on my own. That
See,
was,
that's pretty cool because of course, there's another legacy out there, right? And you don't want to
Mhm.
be in that shadow. You want to cement your own legacy. So that's cool that you not only had that support, but you are developing something on your own and for you. And so
Yes.
you have all of this help, which I think was amazing that you had the support and all. Did you get a chance to do a sit along at all, or were you just going right in?
I just went. I, of course, so my uncle, his brother is also in law enforcement and worked in the same area. And I would do ride alongs in the car for on the police side of things. I don't think anyone realizes how different that is. Like, you are not hearing or seeing anything on the other end. I just remember hearing the voice and being like, that's cool. I'll be her.
No, and I agree because I remember when I first started out, not in Florida. So originally, when I started dispatching, I started out in Central Florida. But when I moved back home to Southwest Michigan, and I was working for Allegan County Central Dispatch, this is the county that I grew up in. They did ride-alongs, so I think I did 3 ride-alongs, and that first one, I remember I'm riding with one of the deputies, and you're right, it was interesting to hear certain things,
Yeah.
um, and then see it play out as it's going on, but also, we were running lights and sirens to a call. No one told me, "Make sure to brace yourself."
Oh, yeah.
So when we're like bobbing and weaving through traffic, I'm like, pop, pop, just going back and forth, and the deputy is just laughing at me, and I was like, yeah, I'll brace myself now that I'm injured.
Yeah. No, I've been there.
And that's what I was going to ask. So when you were doing your those ride-alongs and everything, what are some of the things that you kind of remember as well? I mean, because you were saying you were going to be in the chair for a while and then try to go out in the field, but obviously being in dispatch really got into your blood quick.
Yeah. So are you asking for the ride-alongs in the police
Mhm.
car, or okay. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, so I didn't do as much. I think when I like the idea of being out on the road was more so what I was striving for. Like, there wasn't anything that I ever witnessed. I loved hearing my stepdad's stories and like the impact he made on people, and like being able to feel such a reward doing, things that not every person can do. I think is what intrigued me. The ride alongs, I think I'm deemed a white cloud because my ride alongs were not fun. There was not anything that was like, this is why I'm doing it. It was just the stories I heard that I was like, okay, well, this has to be real because I mean, I haven't witnessed it, but people talk about it. So I'm sure it's real.
So there wasn't a lot of crazy things that happened during those ride-alongs then.
No.
Well,
Yeah, I know. I mean, I guess in like a civilization, civilized right along, since I had no knowledge of anything, the excitement of even just turning on the lights, I loved.
hey,
And
that's cool too.
that I think is probably where it started. I was like, I just want to flip on the lights and hear the sirens. That's all I want to do. Cool.
So you end up having that experience and all, and you're starting to train and such. And So when you ended up going in there, because as you said, you didn't really have a sit along or anything in dispatch. So when you walk in, what is that like for you in the beginning? Like what just for everyone who's watching and listening right now, what is it that you're seeing and what is it that you're feeling? And the reason I ask is because when I first walked into even the first like single seat PD to the central dispatch, where there was about three or four of us, it was not fully overwhelming, but there was that question of, holy crap, am I going to be able to
Oh,
do this? Like
yeah.
everyone is, you would think that what they're doing, they would need to be like an octopus because they're
Mhm.
moving all over the place and stuff. So for you, what was that like in the beginning?
So walking in, it was a smaller center, so we only had three desks. There was one that was facing away from the other two, and then there were two that were connected kind of back to back. And then
Mhm.
you had all your paperwork, right? So I walked in and they were pretty, I want to say they were obviously not fully staffed because centers really are never fully staffed. But my manager was actually the one that I sat with the very first day. And I sat down and I remember being like, okay, there's a lot going on. Like you're hearing the 911 tones go off, you're hearing just normal lines go off, you're hearing random radio traffic in the background, not just from law, but from EMS and fire. And you only have, at that moment, there were only two people in there. And we dispatched for 3 counties and several different cities within those counties, and only two people were doing this. And I sat down with her and I was like, okay, I put on the headphones to listen. And as she's doing radio traffic, she answers 911. And I remember it being a seizure. Someone had a seizure at Walmart, fell, hit their head, and there was blood everywhere. And listening to her calm tone and just like, okay, yep. As she's answering radio traffic, and then she's paging the EMS and then the fire, and then she's going to update officers on a license plate she just ran, and then she's dispatching another call while she's still actively taking this phone call. And I'm sitting here, what? What did I just do? What did I get myself into? And that was the first day of what? So I think everyone feels that at the beginning. And I think just remembering one day at a time, just one day at a time.
Yeah, that is a definite eye opener when you get in and you see someone doing that, just working, and especially if it's a team, working like a well-oiled machine, just going and going and going, and you're the one sitting there, like you said, thinking, "What? Like I don't know what I got myself into. Like this is crazy, and am I going to be able to do this as well?" So you end up having that moment. How long did your training last?
I truly don't remember fully. I want to say so within a couple weeks you're put on the console to actually actively do it, but the thing is we were so short staffed that I would kind of have to do things while my trainer would be stuck doing things. And so you kind of just got tossed in there. On some moments, and then I would have to turn and be like, okay, what from here? And she's like, you do this. So she's trying to finish what she's doing. But I would say, I want to say I was officially at least not having someone monitor me about 3 to 4 months in. I want to say, I could be wrong, but it was around there.
Whoa. So that there is for those who are watching and listening who've never done this before, yes, there are those moments where, and the way I was told this, and I'm using it because it makes so much sense. And a trainer said something similar to me once, but not to the point of what this other person had said. Basically, what they said was, as a trainer with trainees, I would tell them, I'm going to toss you in the water. I'm not going to let you drown. You might take in a little bit of water, but I'm not going to let you drown. So don't worry. And it sounds like it was kind of what was going on with you as well,
Yeah.
as this person is doing all kinds of stuff, but still working with you and throwing it out there. For those who are watching and listening, you have to be trying to picture this and trying to imagine how it's possible that a person can actually do this. And we're some of those people who are actually able to do this. So well
Yeah.
done to you.
Yeah, 15 years later, still here kicking.
So I have to ask then, because as you mentioned, 15 years later, was there a moment in the beginning, whether it be a phone call or an incident or something that happened that really just kind of solidified the fact that you were in the place you were supposed to be?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say that there's a lot of little things that kind of all ball together to where, one day you're having doubts or you're stressed or, you take something that you really preferred wouldn't have happened.
Mhm.
So I actually ended up taking a 911 call from a mother who had rolled over on her 3-month-old baby while she was sleeping. And she had woken up to her baby not breathing. She obviously called us, and I was the one to answer.
Mhm.
And we obviously immediately started CPR, but hearing her voice, my 4-month-old was home in bed. So I'm having this, two-part of me that's like making sure I'm focusing on her and giving her the attention, knowing that right now I can't focus on that. I need to focus on her, listening to her just plead, and with everything she had told me, I knew that the baby was passed, but that's not something like you will keep going. Like you'll keep doing this and I am here with you and I'm doing this with you. After that phone call, I actually questioned if this was for me, if like, can I continue something like this? And then I don't remember how much longer. I wouldn't say it was a close time frame because I obviously had some calls in between these times that helped reinforce that I was here, and not even just calls, but radio traffic, dealing with the officers. But there was one phone call that I took where this father called and he was so panicked. And he's like, my wife's having her baby. And I was like, okay, we all talk about delivering babies, but I guess this is the time. And where he was coming from was about 25 minutes to town. And so, with where she was at in her delivery, there was no way for him to get to the hospital. And so I told him to pull over. I was like, we are delivering your baby right here, right now. Like, are you ready? And whether or not you're ready, we're doing this. And he was like, okay, I'm ready, And as the ambulance gets there or is headed that way, we were able to deliver this baby boy. And you just hear him crying in the background and just hearing life like that. Because we obviously have calls where we deal with a lot of death. And so
Mhm.
to hear just this life crying in the background, that you helped bring this beautiful little thing into this world, even though you didn't see it, but you directed the entire thing. And just hearing it was like, oh, it just solidified it to where it's like, this is what I thrive on. Is we obviously deal with a lot of bad, but the bad definitely can be overpowered by those small, significant goods for sure.
Wow. I feel like, and I've said this before to people that sometimes in 911 it feels like we get a whole set of bad, and out of nowhere, dispatch universe, whatever you want to say, ends
Mhm.
up throwing whether it be a funny call, to kind of break up, the everything that's been going on, the chaos that's been going on, or a call like that where that you were talking right now. And you're right, it's helping these folks in those moments. And even if they're not ready, it's like this is gonna happen. Like we've got to go through this. And you were there. How much longer after that first one, where the baby had passed, did this one happen?
I would say within a couple months. It wasn't like super close to where I was like this, wow, that was ironic, but it was
Right.
far enough apart to where I just remember the feeling of, man, in that center, we dealt with a lot. Like there was a lot of things coming in that center to where, you know, you would go in and when you left, there were probably like 3 people that died in your shift just because you deal with such a large area and such a small amount of people. So you deal with more than normal. And so I do remember that it had to have been a few months.
To be able to go through all of that though, and so let me ask this really quick. um During this time, do you guys use ProQA, like your EMD
We
certified, all of that?
we did not at the time.
You had the
We
cards.
cards. I
Okay.
loved cards.
Okay, so this is why I ask. So again, and I know I've mentioned this before, audience who's watching as well as listening, I've mentioned these cards before. So Janessa, if you can explain, because this type of call is already high priority, right? Just straight up
Yeah.
emergency. You're helping someone deliver their child, but you also have this stack of cards, these flip cards. And,
Yes.
and once you're going through this, I mean, there's like several panes of information that you have to go through. So just really quick, because I just want to illustrate for those who are watching and listening, this is a tough call as it is, right? Just very, very high paced, fast paced, all of this that's going on, but also you're reading through all of this stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm also the one paging out my ambulance, and I also still have law channels asking for driver's license information on their traffic stop and having to dispatch out active in progress calls while you have this small little writing in like there's like 14 things on a panel to where you have to be like, hey, was it yes to this? And then you jump to this one, and then it's no to that one. So you jump to here. And then depending on if something escalated or if something changed so fast in the wrong direction, you have to be able to be like, okay, none of that applies. I got to go down to this one. And you pull that one up and you start going down this one. And it's like a huge puzzle that you have to put together with a blindfold and just listening, towards like, hey, you kind of go here. And I felt like I was blind, if there was braille, could do that. Might
Yeah,
help.
it is definitely a like you said, a puzzle that you're going through and just going through all of it. And there are all these different options. They're like what if statements. Like,
Hmm.
if this happens, then yes, you move down, or if this happens, no, then you go this way. And
Yeah.
it's almost like a maze too when you're going through it, but everything just happens, and you're just going,
Hmm.
and you're in it together, and you have that connection, and then you possibly get a chance to hear that child crying for the first time, and you're right there with them. And so I applaud you. Well done. That is
Thank
awesome.
you.
That is very cool. Not a lot of people get a chance to do that. And so did you get your stork pin?
I did. I have 2 stork pins.
What?
Yes. One was a bathtub delivery, and it was in a different center where the response time is usually within 5 minutes of getting the call. And she just had that baby so fast that it was like, whoo, dude, oh my gosh. it was intense. That one was crazy.
Are either one of those children named after you?
No, they're both boys. They should have been like a boy version. What would that
Right.
be?
Yeah. I'm not sure, but that's funny that you asked that. I was already thinking in my head, I wonder what the equivalent would be.
Yeah.
So we one of the ones that I did where the the babies are basically out already, but dad ends up running next door to drop the kids off, and when he came back, the baby was fully out. And I thought, "Oh, there goes my pin. I didn't get the pin."
I know it's always that, or when the medical, when they arrive just a hair too soon, and you're like, wait, reverse.
Yes, hold on. Give me one chance. And if I
Or
remember
knock on
correctly,
your door.
right. I need that pin. They it was a girl. So but EMS got out there so fast though that I didn't get a chance to say, can you name her Ricarda? Like with
Yeah.
an A? But either way, those are very cool moments, and I'm glad that you've had the chance to do it twice. So the original question, it feels like this is really what kind of solidified that as well. Because you said, that first one, you were kind of questioning if you were in the right place, and then a couple of months later, you get this other one, and it sounds
Mhm.
like that was that moment where you thought, I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Very. Yeah.
So so there's a story that I want to get to here. That was just from a couple days ago, but I want to ask this as well, really quick. Um, and of course, as long as you feel comfortable, but a call that just kind of sticks with you.
So I was thinking there have been a lot of calls where it kind of sticks with you to where I've noticed I actually tend to block it out to where I have to go into a completely different area in my mind to be able to pull these stories out. So the people that do know me, I have my tattoo that I was able to put my stories into because these specific stories were taking up a place in my mind that I needed to free up. So I was sitting there looking at this and I was like, which story would I want to share? Um, there is one specific that I won't get into this time. I would love to share it at one point, but I won't get into that one. That one's super, super in depth and very, very personal. But there's one, this actually happened. So I was getting ready to leave my first center to go to a separate center. And this was after 11 years ish of working at this center. Like I had built this, relationship with everyone. So it was already kind of an emotional day because this was my very, very last day. But I had a mother get in a car accident with her daughter. And I truly don't remember if there were two vehicles or one. I just remember the mom screaming in my ear that she had gotten in an accident and that her daughter was being crushed and could not get out, and she wasn't awake, and she couldn't even tell if she was breathing or not. And so obviously I'm paging out not only EMS and fire and officers, but I'm getting search and rescue headed this way. I'm getting life flight headed this way. We had a cool little app that you could just type in the coordinates, so I didn't have to get off the phone to send life flight. But so I'm doing all of this while listening to this mother plead for someone to save her girl, and I just like hearing the screaming and the cries it's tough. But there was a moment where I was giving her instructions on all that we have to be able to help her daughter to get out, and trying to also hold it together myself, because I'm an empath. I love to feed on other people's emotions. And
Mhm.
so I get pulled in really fast. So I have actually had to learn how to put a wall up in the moment to be like, this is not for me. I need to help you. And so as I'm trying to help her, we were actually able to break the door. Like, she was pulling on the door so hard, and just with me, in the background, like, you've got this, you can do this. And she was able to pry the door open by herself, and she was able to pull her daughter out. We started CPR on her. But thankfully she wasn't in a state where she was so far gone to where we were able to kind of help get her to breathe again. And so she wasn't fully conscious when the paramedics got there, but she was functioning on her own. And so that's one of the most unique and fulfilling stories that could have gone completely south, but also, went on the positive side.
Oh, first of all, thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. And it's a tough thing when you're taking a lot of these calls, and a lot of the times they do go south, and they do go, a way that you really don't want. But luckily with this one, it was different. And I can see why it would stick with you. And it's good to be able to share, right? It's good to be able to get those out. I know a lot of times at the time we really don't think about it until it comes out, and then you kind of get, and maybe you don't notice right away, but you kind of have that, you get a little bit of that weight lifted off of you, and then it's a little bit easier after as well. And with a lot of stuff that we do, the training that we have, the amount of training that we have, there are moments where you are in, let's just say, just in the general public, you're at the store, or you're walking around in the park or whatever. And I know for myself, I used to ask myself, like, would I be prepared enough if something happened in front of me? And I feel like a lot of us ask ourselves that, and run scenarios like, what would I do? What would happen if this or this or this happened? And a few days ago, that exact thing happened to you. Can you tell
Yeah.
us about that?
Yeah. So with dispatching for as long as I have always played the what if game, to where, whether it be in work, I'm like, hey, what if this call came in? How would I handle it? Whether I'm driving, to where I'm like, okay, what if this happened? What would I do? And I think it's a really good practice that I think everyone should do themselves, to where it's like, okay, if this were to happen, what would I do? I have never played the what if game on if someone, um, passed out in front of me or anything, to where would I be able to do CPR? Um, I was doing a 5K on Saturday, and there was an older man that had passed me. And as I'm like admiring like his ambition going up this hill, I was actually getting ready to pass him. And then in that moment, something told me, no, just, you're fine. You just stay where you're at. And then he started to run again. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep walking, because this hill is it's hilly. It's like 8% grade. Okay. And I'm like, I'm tired. I'm not prepared. And then there was something that told me, no, you need to run right now. And so I started running. And as I round this corner, I see that older man fall face first into the pavement. And without, like, my body just went straight into it. My body knew what needed to be done, but my mind was still like, am I seeing what I'm really seeing? Like, is this real?
Right.
And so I'm sprinting to him. And as I'm sprinting, I'm calling 911, and I'm telling, because I see this other guy running in the same direction. And I'm like, I got 911. And, I'm calling the center that I work at. And I'm like, it's Jenessa. Do you have my GPS? I know that is not good practice. Don't do that. But, I'm on a trail. So technically there was no address.
That's true.
But Jen was the one that took it. And she was like, yes, I have it. What's going on? And I was like, a guy just collapsed. And she's like, is he breathing? And I said, yes. But as I'm looking at him, my mind knew it was agonal breathing due to my training that I have had. And there was a class I took out in DC that really was amazing, to where, he put it engraved in my mind. That's like, if you notice it's agonal breathing, you just start compressions, like just start. And, I'm telling this guy to flip him onto his back. And then, so we get him onto his back, and I just yelled, no, he's not breathing, as I'm passing the phone to someone else. And I'm just start compressions, to where I'm like, this is not real. And I'm just going. And in that moment, yes, I've had 15 years of helping people do CPR, but I have never done it myself. And in that moment, I'm like, I don't even know if I did it right. It was like, and that's what reminded me of, like, having that voice on the other end, helping you stay focused, helping you, with the count. Even if it's an experienced person, when you're in that traumatic state, your mind it's all over the place. Like, there's so much going on, and so much emotion that, like, I loved knowing someone else had my back. And so I'm just doing compressions. And I had just ran 2 miles, and I was like, okay, I'm tired. Like, I need someone to take over, because these compressions need to be effective. And if I'm tired, they're not being effective. So this guy took over, and he started doing compressions. And in the training, the instructor said, you do not stop CPR until the patient pushes you off of them, or help is there to take over. And that is seriously, I think, what helped me in that moment, because there were many, many times where we could have stopped and been like, well, he's kind of breathing, because it's normal for air to come out as you're doing compressions.
Yeah.
But, I was like, no, you need to keep going until he pushes us off. Like, we are in this. And there was a moment where he had actually made a motion as if he wanted to push us off. So he actually stopped compressions for a second, and we both look at him, and within seconds, you could just see it drain out, to where he was draining so fast that I was like, nope, we need to keep going. So we continued compressions, and within, it felt like an eternity, but maybe a minute or two, he actually pushed us off and was like, oh, I'm stop. Like, okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're awake.
Holy moly.
I was so overwhelmed. Like, I just started bawling. There was so much emotions running through me. And I just sat there and talked to him until help got there. And it was phenomenal, but super, super overwhelming.
Jeez. I'm picturing everything that you're saying as you're talking about this, and I'm literally at the edge of my seat. And I watched the news story, and I knew the gentleman was okay. but just listening to you say it, from your point of view and how everything was going on, that is intense. And,
Hmm.
like I said, sometimes there's scenarios that we run as, would I be able to do this if something happened? Would I be able to? And bam, there it is. You were able to do this, and you had the other person there helping you. You had 911 on the phone, and then the guy comes back, and just the
Yeah,
look on
it's
your face, like that's the that's I could feel that, like, whoa, like
I
here
know.
it is.
Like just that, like, oh my gosh, he's talking. Like I was just pushing on your chest and you're talking now. And he was ready to get up and go, and I was like, whoa, we just did CPR on you. Like, let's just relax for a minute. And his face
Right.
was like, what? You did what now?
Wow.
Uh,
And so, and in the video and everything, towards the end, he ends up he's a little emotional, right, in the video, and happy emotional, right? And he calls you his, basically, like his guardian angel. So
yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. We keep in touch. So it
That
was a special moment that
wow.
I'm okay not doing again.
But also, that you would be able to
Yes,
if
exactly.
if
And
something like that happened. Yes.
I remember telling one of my supervisors, I was like, that was nothing like the training that we go through. Like there was no calmness of, okay, you call 911 and you get AED and are you breathing? And no, that was not there.
Intense. Wow. So we have just a couple minutes left, because I know that you have to go here. And again,
Yes.
thank you so much for sharing every single story, for what you do, and for coming on as well. It's been an honor to have you on here. But I have just one last question for you before we go. And
Yeah.
that question is, out of these 15 years that you've had, your experience, everything that you've gone through, if you could travel back in time to talk to yourself in the beginning of your dispatching career, what would you tell yourself? What is some advice that you would give yourself?
Oh, at the very beginning, the first several years, I let the caller's emotions overtake me to where if they called in or they were yelling at me, I would take that personally and I would hold on to that and just be like, ooh, what a horrible day. Like this person, it was so rude. And later on, I realized I can't control other people. I can't control how people act. I can only control how I take it, my tone of voice. And I've noticed that the more calmly you talk to people, the more like compassion you show to others, it actually helps bring them down. Like people call in when they're, even if it's on a non emergency line, people call in a panic or in a stressed out state of mind where, yes, it's not an emergency per se, but to them right now, it is, and it's upsetting to them. And they just want to feel heard. They just want to know that we're there to take their call. And yes, you always have your select few that don't care. And, we pay their taxes and or they pay our salary, and it will forever, there will always be those people, and to not let them overpower and take over all of the good people that call and that are just needing help, to not take things internally and to just be a good person, whether it be someone that they know you're being a good person, or they won't care to ask your name, but know that you impacted them in a positive way. And so I think that would be definitely something I wish I would have learned earlier on.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so very much once again. Thank you for everything that you do. And it has been a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
So I will be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and it's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. And for everything Within the Trenches podcast, you can simply go to links.co/WTT podcast. This broadcast has been sponsored by In Digital, a leader Next Gen Core Services. And you can see this on Facebook, YouTube, X, as well as LinkedIn Live. And then you can listen to the podcast 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.